Well, hello. Welcome to the Ultima Makers podcast. Sorry to have kept you all waiting. Just had some figuring out of how YouTube works. But we're all up and running now. And that is all that matters. Making sure my audio is all good as we go live. Don't want any more glitches or gotchas. But it sounds like we are good. Dun, dun, dun. You may also be hearing someone in the background. That is my guest for today, Mr. Nathan there we go. Okenwa. Mr. Nathan Okenwa. Hello, how are you, Nathan?
Yeah, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. Just figuring out YouTube, man. This is my first stream I've ever done. It's all very weird.
When you're doing that first one, just getting that first one out of the way is always an interesting one. But how's your day been?
It's been good. I've been practicing a little bit of trying to do this stream, but it's like all the buttons are all in different places. There's this new thing on YouTube that is like different from the other stuff. I've only ever done Twitch before. But yeah, just been practicing my talk. Been deploying some apps. Had work meetings in the morning. And yeah, been overall nice day. And it's been sunny today as well. A little bit of green out in the background.
You know what? It's so annoying. It's almost like you're not allowed to go out. Then the best weather comes out. But I know you can still go out for a walk and stuff.
Very much.
But you can't just go out and chill. Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I know what you mean. If only it was just raining every day, I wouldn't be so sad being inside.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'm going to send a tweet out to announce that I am live to everyone on the internet.
Cool.
I managed to get the...
Whoa, my resolution.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
That is very interesting. Because it was perfectly fine earlier.
Yeah, in our little test, it was... You're massive. You're so HD.
It is so...
I could see your lovely little posters in the background before. Your Deadpool and... What's the other one? Is that... Justice League.
Justice League.
You can barely tell on this resolution.
Do you think... Yeah. Do you think it might be worth, like, me hopping on the call again?
Sure, you can try again while I tweet out.
All right. Cool. I'll see you folks who are watching. If you are watching, I'll see you in a moment. Be right back.
So I'll get Nathan back on the call. I'd like to talk to you guys about what I'm going to be talking about today, or upcoming, what I'll talk about, and then Nathan can talk about his talk, so you know what to expect. I'll be talking a little bit about some deployment strategies, some ways you can deploy apps, and we'll actually be deploying a few example apps for fun. Yes, I like to deploy apps for fun. Look at me. Wow. So we'll be doing that on a few of the major clouds and seeing how their deployment strategies, their apps, their ecosystems kind of work, and talk a little bit about maybe where app deployment will be going in the future. So that should be quite exciting. As we wait for Nathan to come back into the call to talk to us about his talk, I'll send out my tweet. Makers number 1, deploying some code. Hey, Nathan. Hey, yeah, you're much more high resolution now, so I need to scale you down. Wow, your camera's so powerful. You need the GPU to power your whole webcam, do you? Let me just scale you back in here with your great big camera. Lovely.
So that's why I was like outside before.
That's it. Look at us with our podcasting mics. It's like we're doing this. It's like we're probably.
Yeah, it's like we're matching, right? So it's like, because I've actually got the same cover that you have. I just took it off because I thought, and this was literally for vanity purposes. I only took it off because I thought it looks better. Maybe it looks better to other people.
I put mine on to hide how crappy my random eBay mic is.
Oh, mine was a random. It was like the Amazon recommend. You know when you get that one.
Yeah, that's. I think mine might be the recommended in Germany. So that's why they're so different. Cool. So
Wow.
would you like to talk about, or would you like to explain what you're going to talk about later on, right after me?
So later on, I'm going to talk about this because when you told me about this meetup, you said it could be about serverless stuff, all sorts of stuff. But then there was one line which you took away, which like actually made me choose that this is what I was going to talk about. You were like, you know what? I don't really mind. I just want to worry about like not having to care about where our code runs. And then I thought I'm gonna like be a bit annoying and kind of be like, I am going to give a talk where we precisely care about where this code runs because it's gonna run on their machines. Not in a, but I think Electron is an amazing framework which you can use to build desktop applications, and you can power those desktop applications if you want to with serverless frameworks. So you can have APIs and all of those other serverless magic things, but rather than just powering a website, also have it powering a desktop application. So I'm going to talk about the desktop framework of Electron itself, and then talk a little bit about how you can power it and give it amazing features with just APIs.
Fantastic. Yeah, the reason I was so excited about just this route of don't care about where the code runs is really like the end user's PC is like the ultimate edge where you put your code, right? We talk about putting code as close to the user on the edge. That is client-side code, and there's nothing more client-side than the PC that a user is on, right? There's so many good Electron apps.
Yeah.
Everything now is an Electron app because it's just so powerful. It got a bad rap for a while, but like everyone uses it. It's Slack is now performant.
Here's the thing, right?
Discord is an
It's
amazing
one of those things
app,
where
and it's just everything that I like is an Electron app.
I will admit that it's easy to learn, difficult to master. So it's very easy to spin up an Electron application. It's not easy to have a big Electron application that does so many amazing things and still keep it within check. And I'll explain a little bit why that is. And it's not really just Electron's fault. Explain it on Chromium.
Yeah, very, very, very RAM intensive, eh?
Yeah, it really
followed
is.
any of the programmer humor Reddits, there's always, every so often, there'll be a Chrome eating your RAM meme. That's just standard.
Oh, gosh. So every time I'm like streaming or doing anything where anytime I'm doing anything where I'm going to be showing people like my screen or my camera, usually my camera, what I always do is I just put like performance on the side to just like see if something does go wrong. It just helps me find the thing quicker. And Google Chrome just like it's like battling with Skype for who's got the most power usage right now, and it's ridiculous.
Yep, everyone's
It
battling for your
may
battery.
also be part of the fact that I've got like 4 Chromium applications running.
Yeah, it's difficult.
Other than Chrome. Yeah.
I can kind of get away with it. I've got Firefox, so it's not as much Chromium, but it's still a lot of RAM to go around. But yeah. I'm going to start with my talk then, Nathan. I'll be try and time it with about half an hour, and feel free to stay in the call. Otherwise, I'll dial you back in. But in the meantime, thanks for the explanation, and we'll catch you in about half an hour. I'll set a timer as well, so I can try and be on time and not run over. And yeah, see you in a bit. Coolio. So, I've transitioned over to my slides. And let's talk about who makes building fun, comparing cloud deployments. I deploy a lot every day. A little bit of background about me. I'm a full stack engineer. I'm currently based in Berlin. My name is Pandelis. You can find me on Twitter as PandelisZ. And by the way, if you would like to interact with us today in the community, the comments on YouTube are disabled because we're trying to enforce a code of conduct, and we follow the Berlin Code of Conduct. That's berlincodeofconduct.com. So if you'd like to interact and communicate with everyone, there's a link on the stream build on ultima.com/community, where you can join the Slack and ask some questions to me and Nathan or to everyone else in the community. The reason we've done that is so that we can actually block people if they say naughty things. So yeah, please go ahead, feel free to join us there. So let's talk about deployments. This is roughly the structure that I want to talk about today. I'd like to talk about how deployments once was, what it was like to deploy in yesteryear when I first started to code, what I would do, my strategies, what it was like. We'll take a look at some of the current ways to deploy and how we kind of moved to this era of cloud deployments that we currently live in. We're going to actually deploy some apps live and see how that goes. I always like challenging the demo gods and just doing stuff live. So we will do that, and we'll hopefully have some apps deployed in production. Hopefully by the end we can compare a little bit and see how things differ, people's different cloud strategies to how you deploy, and try and determine some trends and compare where we are today and see where we could be tomorrow. And hopefully at the end we have some Q&A time. Just talk about deployments. So let's take a trip down memory lane. So way back in 2010 was when I was roughly deploying my very first website on the internet. Now at the time I was very young. I was 13, 12 around the time when I was first kind of trying to experiment and put things on the internet. And way back then, it was very much what I call the kind of drag and drop generation of how I deployed software. I was very much drag and drop in my skills. The tooling at the time was very much emphasized around drag and drop. The web was meant to be easy and accessible to everyone. So the tooling around deploying and putting things on the internet was equally as simple and drag and drop. I remember this app was on every computer that I had. You may remember FileZilla. It was an FTP client. What does FTP stand for? File Transfer Protocol. Yes, what a lovely piece of software that was. And it was just so simple. You have your file, you shove it into FileZilla, and it uploads it to the server. And boom, voila, you have some sort of app on the internet. How great is that? Drag and drop. That's all it used to take. And you could edit things live on production. That's generally not advised, but you could right-click, edit your PHP file, save it, and it would be instantly deployed. What a great time to be alive. No worrying about build times, no worrying about dependencies. Things just worked. And that was the big sell of PHP. It was just a file, it had no dependencies, you could just drop it, and it would just work. And it did just work for many sites and still does today. I still very much love PHP. And it still powers the majority of the internet, actually. Let's take a little bit of a look at an overall timeline of how things shifted from that drag and drop time to kind of where we are today. About 2005, this new framework based on Ruby came out called Ruby on Rails. And it powered very much the new generation of Web 2.0 that we've come to experience today. Your sites like Basecamp, GitHub, Stripe, many a San Francisco startup is a fully Rails site that all started kind of in 2005. Excuse me. Around about 2006, we had the introduction of AWS with their EC2 servers. And this kind of started the VM revolution of being able to easily start web servers or virtual machines in which you could place or execute code. 2007, we had Heroku built on top of AWS. I'm not sure if they were on top of AWS at that time, but anyway, today they are all AWS. And Heroku, in my mind, very much was or still is, kind of the ultimate don't care, just host my code. And it just kind of gets things done, gets the job done very well. 2009, we started seeing Node.js come into fruition, into the world. We got JavaScript as a runtime. And this really shook up how we deploy code, and as having JavaScript as as a runtime really refreshed how we kind of think about code in the background, especially Docker coming around in 2013. Now we could kind of package things up in a way that would run anywhere, supposedly. We had this, it works on my machine. Well, now my machine is the cloud. Shift. Lambda serverless, AWS Lambdas kind of came out in 2014 and pushed us towards this serverless way of thinking. A true, I really don't care where my code lives. It just needs to run eventually, or there is no server. It will run when it needs to run. So a lot of new ideas, a lot of new ways to deploy code, and a lot of new services built around Lambdas to help us build code. 2015, we open sourced, or people open sourced Kubernetes. Kubernetes, a runtime for running Docker images, automating deployments, running your own infrastructure on your hardware, abstracting all the cloud solutions into one API, the Kubernetes API that you could run and all software could run and understand. So you no longer would need to abstract or communicate with the AWS APIs. Instead, you could run Kubernetes on AWS, and then you would only ever communicate with Kubernetes type APIs. So we're kind of making everything, all the APIs the same. And Kubernetes has led to a lot of innovation in platforms as a service, deployment strategies, and all sorts of fun stuff that's come out of the Kubernetes world. And as you can see, kind of towards the 2013, 14, that's all very fresh. These are all quite new, fresh concepts that are constantly developing and constantly changing. So let's put our nostalgia goggles on for a moment, and let's see what it was like to deploy back in the day. Now I've logged in to my old website that still has FTP running. So let's go have a look at what all that looks like still today. So you may remember, sites that looked a little bit like this, that would promise you, run your code anywhere for like $2 a month, $3 a month, run your site, run any number of sites, infinite bandwidth, run WordPress, all this. And that was very much my jam back in 2010. That is exactly what I needed. Cheap website, host my WordPress, please, for me. Here we go, €3 a month. And it worked, and it's been very stable. I've been running my site on this site for 10 years now. I checked earlier today when the account was first made in my WordPress user, and it was 2010. As you can see, maybe their site isn't as performant as we might expect these days, but gosh darn it, they host my code, and it's been stable. So I could log in and show you cPanel. A bit of nostalgia here. Anyone out there remember cPanel? This was the GUI for managing websites. This was your Kubernetes control panel back in the day. And it was very user-friendly. Again, very focused on anyone being able to make a website. You could install WordPress in a single click. There's all these extra features, import this, import that. Do I want to edit my database directly? There's a feature for that. Remember PHP myadmin? Well, let's take a trip down memory lane and let's log into PHP myadmin. Why not? And it's all there. It's in the browser. It's just ready for you to go and interact with. Is someone in your site lost their password? Log into the database and just change it. Why not? Here's all my WordPress, like all over the place. And I can just explore as needed. There wasn't as many barriers to just getting into my data and just changing things. If I wanted to upload something, I could just simply upload or edit live. I could edit this file. So I'm logged into my FTP site here. I'm not using FileZilla because apparently they've gone a bit yucky over the last few years and started putting weird software or weird glitches and ads in their software. So I'm using Cyberduck, but hey, it still does the job. And this is a file on the server. I can edit in text edit, sure, why not? Classic. Unsecure FTP, there wasn't anything like SFTP back then. This is a fully unsecure everything. But here we go. Here's my website, and I can edit. Why not? Overwrite, please. Wow. Save, and I think that's updated. And where am I? FTP is cool. .pandelis.me. I think I made it. It is FTP is great, although it is also cool. That's as simple as it was. I could edit live. How's that for time to deploy? Right click, edit. Why not? Why shouldn't I be able to do that today? And gosh darn it, that's what I want. So there's our kind of nostalgia goggles. That's how it used to be back in my day. Then we kind of entered the VM generation. Everyone didn't want to run PHP, right? Every shared host was all PHP. What happens if I want to run my code, my way, my rules? Well, you could run your own hardware. You could buy a server, put it in a rack, and log in via SSH and or plug in a keyboard at the data center, install the software, and plug it in, and that would be your server. However, back when I have to click through this. Back in 2006, when AWS came about, there was a massive shift towards VMs, and it started the VM generation, or what I call the VM generation. These are all my opinions and my ways of thinking about stuff. So let's look at how to deploy on a VM. It may have been a while for you to have done this directly in the AWS console, but that is a very good feature of AWS. You can just do everything through the console. And back when AWS started, it was just EC2, Elastic Compute Cluster. What's the second C? Elastic Compute something beginning with C. Elastic Compute Cloud, EC2. And this really changed up how we deployed code. So it was now as simple as, instead of going through the rigmarole of going to a server, grabbing physical soft servers, plugging them into a data center, you could instead come here, say launch instance, pick whatever you wanted. I wanted, say, Amazon Linux. I mean, that obviously didn't exist back in 2014, but you could deploy Ubuntu Server. Why not? Windows Server 2008 or 3 was probably around. But let's say I deploy one of these, little micro instance, review and launch. Launch. I set my key pair. I acknowledge that I have them. Bada bing, there's now a server booting up on the internet for me. Very nice. And this is still a very valid deployment strategy. If you have some sort of highly complex software or setups that you need, and you need hardware level access. So you don't want a hypervisor. You don't want something on top like Docker managing things. You could totally just have a VM, install some software, nothing bad about that, and SSH in and run your code. Now we'll notice this obviously takes time. It needs to boot up a whole VM. It needs to go to AWS, request a server from the pool, give itself a server, install software, grab the VM, give it storage from their storage pools. So this can take some time. And this is an involved process. So I now need to go in, install the software that I want on it, probably do a Linux update, get the latest software, patch any holes that might be there, like firewalls, whatnot. So this is a very involved process. Generally, you want someone dedicated to sorting something like this out. So it's not so much a one-man operation when you want to use a lot of VMs. However, it's a nice way to get into Linux and figuring out your web deployment strategies this way. I'll let this kind of come up in the background and we'll take a look at the result of that in a minute. Oh, in fact, it's running. Fantastic. And I can connect, SSH into it. They give me all the credentials just there. Very nice. Yes, I would like to access my server, please. And there we go. We've got a server on the internet. There we go. EC2 Amazon Linux, and there's some stuff here. I could go to the etc www or something or other and find where Apache is running. There's probably an Apache server on here somewhere. Let's visit the DNS of this site. Bloop. Is there anything running? Normally it just runs a little hello world Apache server, but that would be Apache. And then I could SSH in here, change things live if I wanted to. I could Vim. I used to do a lot of just Vim and nano editing just on the server because, I don't want to be moving files back and forth all the time. Sometimes I just want to edit one value. Sometimes I would upload a zip, unzip it, and then change like some config, and that would be my server deployed. And that was how we did it with VMs. So what's something a bit more modern? How do we kind of do it today? How have people used all these VMs to give us better infrastructure and better, easier products and tools to use today? So next or current gen tools, I would say, are things like your Netlify, your Versal, formerly Zeit, things like Firebase, higher level tools from all the clouds, not EC2, but things built on top of EC2 like Lambdas, things higher up the stack, things that aren't meant to have like root access, things like Lambda, things like Google's app, whatever they call their app stuff, or Cloud Run, things like that. Each cloud kind of has their run and forget infrastructure. App Engine from Google, that's what I was trying to think about. App Engine, Firebase, they have some multiple solutions. And these are very much centered around bringing it kind of back to just drag and drop or just fire and forget of shared hosts of yesteryear. So let's explore some of the current gen stuff that's out there. Let's say I wanted to deploy a Netlify site. Now, Netlify is a proponent of this modern way or this new way of thinking about building web apps. It's called they have it on the website, the Jamstack. And they really push kind of this way of thinking of your site should be on a CDN on the edge, as close to the edge as possible. And then all your kind of web server complexity should be accessible from the client side via API calls. So let's get into Netlify and let's see how easy it is to deploy with Netlify. I have kind of my website, random authentication error. Let's log in. And let's do some new site from my GitHub. Authorize Netlify. Having some weird auth stuff going on here. Maybe my ad blocker's being weird. GitHub. There we go. So I'm going to try and deploy my personal site, which is p.endel. Or endel. Yep, there I am. Let's see how it handles this. So this is currently a GitHub Pages site. And it asks for a build command. Well, that is probably npm run build, but I will have to check. So let's go and check that. So it's pa.endel.is. There is a package JSON. So this is a node app that can be built statically. And we can do start or parcel build, I think is the correct command to do. But let's say publish directory npm run. Can I do yarn in here? Whoop, gulp, make Jekyll. Whoops. Okay, well, it started something. And the idea here is you give it what you want to build. It will run that in the cloud. It will build it in the cloud. It's not using your resources. It will build it in the cloud, gather the static assets, and put it on the edge for a user. So it's kind of taken out your need to manage a server, taking out your need to build code. It builds for you. Your need to register certificates. Certificates used to be a big worry, and now certificates are just handed out freely all over the place, thanks to Let's Encrypt. And then eventually this will build a static website. Nice. Fairly nice. Let's have a look at one of their competitors. Let's have a look at, say, Zeit or Zeit. I think I had a Zeit example in here somewhere. Or I had a Next.js example. Yeah, so I've got a little Next.js site here. Now has some very nice command line tools. So they try and make the experience very command line centric, versus Netlify is kind of more watch a repo. Netlify can do that, but it also has this kind of neat now command where you can just say, I want this, now make it on the internet. So let's set up and deploy Next.js. Yes, and it gives us this nice little interactive GUI. So that's neat. I don't need to configure a JSON file. I can just say, look, just deploy this, please. Yes, this project, or no, don't link it to an existing project. It's called Next.js example, and it's here, and it will go off and start building. Want to override the settings? Yeah, sure, or no, because it seems to have detected everything fine. So this has a whole bunch of extra layers in between. It checks, it tries to figure out what you're running and appropriately hosts it or creates the environment for you to host it in. So eventually, if I go here, I can see that it's building, and eventually this will create and put a site up on the internet. And again, it's not actually building on my system. It's now building this on the cloud in their infrastructure. I'm not actually running code. I'm not actually even building a zip or anything. I'm not even downloading my node modules. I'm simply saying, you know what, just deploy this, and here it is. It's already live. And I can visit a site live on the internet, and there it is. And everyone else can also do the same. I can click around. Right, it takes me to the next docs. And there's also probably 404 features and whatnot, I think. I think that's the 404 of this page, because the 404 of Netlify or Zeit looks different. But yeah, so that's Zeit. So it's I can show you in settings some extra stuff that it's doing. So it's auto detected that it's running Next.js, and it also supports various other frameworks. So it's trying to take some of the thinking out of the user's way. It just says, you know what, just press now, and I will try to my best ability to figure out what it is that you want to do. So that's quite neat. I at the end of the day, I want my code to run somewhere quickly, and now is a great way to do that. It will just throw it up, try and understand what I'm doing to the best of its ability, and obviously I have ways to change and settings to adjust, but the main way I just say now, and most of the time your code will just be up. This also works for static sites. You can just say now in a static directory. It will understand that there's nothing there that it can run, and it will kind of just work. It also understands that if you have like a JS file, potentially that might be something that needs to run as a serverless function. So it has all this kind of serverless features. And it tries to extrapolate those out into runnable functions. Let's go to this deployment. And if we look under functions, there's an API, hello. So if I was to execute this, let's go to the output here. So under API, there is the hello function, and let's invoke this. So API hello returns John Doe as the response. There we go. And we can edit that, and as fast as we deployed it the first time, it will deploy that out. So under API hello, Nathaniel, it now responds as save, and then now boom, off it goes. It will build and then rehost that. Fantastic. So that's a nice piece of kind of modern infrastructure. Let's kind of look at how people do it. We've looked at AWS. Let's kind of look at a solution from Google as well. Why not? Cloud or console.cloud.google.com, because they like their subdomains. So we looked at EC2. Let's look higher up the stack. Google has a few high-level code hosting solutions. There's things like Cloud Functions, things like Cloud Run, or App Engine kind of is their own little framework for a little database, little framework for running Python and JavaScript, things like that. So let's try a Cloud Function. So generally, Cloud Functions are like your serverless type things. There are single-use, single-use, very limited scope type applications. So let's say this was like my poop emoji, or my poop generator. And I could res.satisEndMessage. So there's a little editor integrated. So there's some nice higher level features here. We're not expected to go and SSH into anything. But we have an editor given to us. And this is very powerful. We even have a package.json. We can add dependencies. But we have basically a full-blown editor here. So let's take this message. And let's respond with a poop emoji. 2 poops. Okay. Function execute hello world. Request query message. And let's create a function. Inline editor, we can also upload a zip, just like we kind of would an FTP file. Drop it in this function. Let's run this. It has its own runtime. It's allocated its own memory. Don't own this server. It's going to find somewhere to run it and just run it. And let's see what it's doing. Eventually, I should be able to trigger this guy when it goes up. But yeah, so essentially I've written and deployed some code right now. Simple as that. Lovely. We've got a lovely green tick. How do I run this guy? Bloop. Click back in. I should have a URL that I can execute, or a way to, what's my equivalent? Oh, that's equivalent REST for this trigger. URL, and I'm forbidden. But, oh, I probably need to do a post request. So let's do a quick postman post. It's never 100% easy, is it? So we do a post to here, and it's forbidden. Okay, but we deploy some code, and you've seen there's an editor and some way, or we can edit code directly. So that's quite nice. Permissions, whatever. Delete this, don't cost me money, please. So we're now kind of getting to the point of you don't even need to write the code or put it anywhere. You can write the code directly in the browser. So that's cool. So Lambda's kind of the same. Firebase also similar features. Let's talk now about where we might go in the future. Next generation, what's coming down the road? Now, warning, this is highly opinionated. This is what I think is going to happen to the world. This is trends that I've kind of would like to see and I have identified. So I think next generation, where we will be in the next 5 to 10 years, is tools and services like Code Sandbox, glitch.com, and yesterday GitHub announced code spaces, and people have been hyping on about those. Well, I think we will be using these all the time to deploy all our code. It will always be our editors will become our deployment environment. So not only will we edit code directly on the server potentially, but we're back to kind of the FTP way of thinking. We can work entirely in the browser if we wanted to, not on our systems, not on our hardware. We could run our code, deploy our code, build our code with CPU power provided by the cloud. We can have light machines. We would no longer need to carry around CPU power with us. And that hopefully will allow us to be much more inventive with the way that we deploy and write code. So let me show you what I mean by this. I think Glitch is highly underrated, and they have such an amazing tool that is very future-facing at the moment. Let me view my projects. Let's have a look. I had a little Express things. I think it's this one. So let's edit this project. And now this is code running in the cloud. This is an editor, and then instantly I have a running server. It's running my code, and I'm editing the code, and it's auto reloading everything. And I even have a command line. I have a terminal. I have everything that I would ever need to be able to develop a site. I can ls around, I can change, I can install modules. I can do it all. Why is this not booting up? Let's try and boot up a service. So this is my app that I made. It is a little Express app. It serves some stuff. You can post to it. There is a post somewhere, or there is a JSON response that you can give. And if this was all running smoothly, there would be a nice little site here. Obviously, the internet isn't smooth. Can I fork this? Oh, there it is. And it's running there. So I can add things. It's doing post requests. It's getting things back from an Express server, and I can edit things live if I wanted to. There is a view that is served via Express, I believe. Let's dream of the future. And save. Glitch autosaves, fantastic. And that will eventually update. It seems Glitch is having a bit of a time today. Cool. But essentially, this is harkening back to the way how easy it used to be in the FTP days. I can just edit directly. It happens. My system's not even doing anything, and it's all just working in the cloud. And the same thing with other tools like, where's my slides? Where did I put my slides? Other tools like Code Sandbox, cloud environments, edit your code live. And Code Spaces is going to bring that to the masses as well, with just being able to edit directly in GitHub, using a tool that most developers are already very happy with, VS Code. And in fact, we can try that out today even. There is VS, you may remember back at Build a few months ago. Build is Microsoft's big conference for announcing new tools and stuff. They announced VS Code Cloud Spaces, or Code, what's it called? Code Spaces VS Code. That's GitHub's one. They have better SEO. This one. And we can try this out today even. We don't have to wait for GitHub to implement it because Microsoft has already done all the legwork. So let's quickly sign in. I think I had some trouble with, I did have some trouble with Firefox. So I have Chrome. And this is basically Glitch but on steroids, a real kind of production environment. It's not running my code. This is a development environment. However, it's a real editor. And the next step from here is simply having this be my production environment, having the one button at the end that says, deploy my code, run in Azure, run on Kubernetes, run somewhere. And really, this is where I would like to see the future is these kind of technologies. Easy to use, right click, just edit, and not care about the infrastructure. It's great having Kubernetes and being able to control all my infrastructure. However, sometimes I don't care so much about everything or where my code runs or needing to control everything. I only really care about the last mile, getting the code to the user. And everything else in between is just getting in my way. And yeah, there we go. So we initialize, it'll try and start running things. It has some cold boot time. It has to, in the background, it's doing all the complicated stuff that we all used to do as developers in the VM days. It's giving me a VM on the Azure cloud. It's installing code. It's installing my dependencies. It's doing everything that I would do manually, just in a very nice automated fashion. And I just don't have to worry about it. It will just work. And the beauty of this is this can come with me anywhere. I'm currently on my MacBook. I could move to my desktop streaming setup. I could have the same code running with all my dependencies, with all my keybinds, with all my extensions, and not need to care. We've seen it with Windows subsystem for Linux. You shouldn't need to care about your underlying system. You can farm it out to something else. You don't even need to run Windows. You can run Linux. Well, let's take that, put it on the cloud, and hey presto, you have Visual Studio Code running in the cloud. And that's where I'd like to see our future. Code editors as your production environment. The future is actually all in FTP all along. Who would have thunk it? FTP running my websites, being able to drag and drop was all that it would take to make me happy today. And with that, since we are on the Ultima Makers first event, I'd just like to invite on Josh from Ultima to kind of talk about the kind of code stuff that they are doing to try and make our developer lives as easy as I dream them to be. So let me find Josh's camera. Josh, are you with us on Skype? Fantastic. I can see you and hear you. I'm just going to make sure that you are on my OBS. Your camera has just been a bit weird for me, so I just got to recreate you once again. One moment. Let's find where you are. I can't see you in some. Me and Nathaniel show up, but you're just like a little bubble in the top corner. It's weird. But there you are. Okay. Please hold while I try and get your camera up. There we go. It's just cropped you weirdly because I think you've moved to your phone. Good, good. Oops. I'm still very new to OBS, so it takes me a second to get the stuff fixed. And because your phone is so high resolution, you go off the screen. I have to scale you all the way back down. There you go. You're coming in. I will quickly switch over and get you sorted out. One moment, please.
Hi, I'm good. Good. Sure thing. So here at Ultima, we are building what we hope to be the cloud development platform of the future. I say cloud development because it's not just about getting your code live. It's also about giving you a development environment when deploying locally. But no more of this, like, it works on my box because your box will be one-to-one exactly the same as the cloud. This means it's way quicker to get started with a new project. You don't have to go like that Docker compose up and wait for 10 minutes while all of the Docker containers download and then start running and slow down your PC. But you can still use the same tooling that you did before using Ultima. So you can still use your VS Code or JetBrains, whatever IDE you like. You just run our little terminal, our little command line tool, and you'll get up and running in like a matter of seconds. Yeah. So that is Ultima. We also integrate really well with everyone's IDE because our projects are based on Git repos. So we give you a Git repo. If you push a new branch, that's a new environment. So when going through your pull request review process, you have the same. Every time we make a pull request, we will spin up a preview environment so that people, like other people in your team, can go and check your changes before you hit that big deploy button.
Lovely. So like kind of serverless, don't care, just runs. All the benefits of everything else, while not needing to
exactly
worry about your own environment. Lovely.
Yeah. And it's serverless insofar as you don't need to worry about where your code's running, but so it's more like you're deploying an API and there's a box somewhere that runs it, rather than having those cold boot times that serverless has left us with. And that means you can then run stateful apps that rely on things like WebSockets as well. So you don't need to spin up anything weird in order to make stateful apps like WebSockets happen. You can just run it the same way that you would if you were just running it off your box locally.
Lovely. Because that's a huge limitation currently with a few serverless implementations, right? Like Zeit, Versal. Lambda, I think, Firebase has WebSockets, but it's its own service. But they don't offer WebSockets. There's no state, which is nice to a degree, but sometimes you need some state. And I was gonna do a little Heroku demo with a chat app, which is all stateful as well, but I didn't quite have time in my half an hour. But yeah, it used to be a lot easier to do stateful apps. And then it became more difficult, and now hopefully it can be a bit easier again. There's a lot of reliance on APIs over running state yourself, I feel, these days.
Yeah, I don't want anyone to have to change the way that they develop in order to develop on Ultima. It should be exactly the same way as you were before. I want to integrate completely with the way that you're doing things and just make you faster, not have to make you change the way you're doing things just because you've chosen to use Ultima to deploy your app.
Cool. So there's an alpha running right now, right? And you're looking for people to try it out?
Yes. Yeah. Very excited to start the alpha testing. We started last Thursday with our absolute first alpha tester, which was very insightful. Tomorrow we're onboarding another, I think, 5-6 people, and then another few early next week. But we're always looking for more testers. So if you want to try out the future of cloud development, then join the community in the link below and hit me up on the direct message. My name's Josh. I'm the only Josh in there, I think, so far.
Cool.
So yeah.
Some more Joshes in. Cool. Well, thanks, Josh. Thanks for that. I'm also excited to try out the alpha soon. I think I'm booked in for tomorrow. And,
I think you are, yeah.
wicked.
Very excited to have you
It'd
on.
be nice to try it out. But yeah, thanks. I'll let you get on, and
Thanks.
I'll switch back to Nathan and I. Hey Nathan, how you doing? And I've called you I've put Nathan as the mic name, so I keep calling you Nathan. Nathaniel. Oops. Hey, I can't hear. I think you're muted on the Skypes.
I should unmute my
Fantastic.
mic before I say I am doing good. That's just Nathaniel.
There you go. Cool. Yeah. So
that was really cool talk. Actually,
Thank you.
I really liked it, and I liked watching sort of. And it was almost very nostalgic, going through the ages and watching.
I just want to edit my PHP file, man.
Work with stuff. Yeah.
That's it. What was the first thing you ever deployed?
I remember using. Oh, first thing I actually deployed was actually on the web. So it would have been on my university servers.
Oh, wow, okay.
And it was FTP with what was the thing that you used? The duck one.
CyberDuck or something like that. Yeah.
CyberDuck. It was the other one's something Zilla, but CyberDuck. That's what I used to use as well, actually, to get going. It's very interesting because, like, even I don't know what they were using because they didn't actually teach us. Well, I hadn't learned about web service just yet, so it was just stick your HTML into this file and it will appear in the internet.
Oh yeah.
So there was a lot of magic going on behind that I didn't know about, but now I do understand that there's a web server somehow really complex that goes through every single student's public file depending on the URL. But it's very interesting watching how times have changed. I really love the way a lot of places are doing ways that you can push straight from like GitHub and stuff, where I literally just go git push and my website updates. That feels beautiful.
Yeah, it's always nice, and just not needing to. Yeah, not even needing to build and push to even GH pages where you have to like do a special build and then push it to a special branch. Just not caring at all. It's nice. I remember being super excited about this one plugin in Dreamweaver where you could have the FTP server in the window.
Yeah.
And it was like, I can click and it puts it in the main window that I'm editing right now. Oh, it's brilliant. Yeah.
Dreamweaver was an editor that was just ahead of its time and trying to do things that it wasn't ready for. That technology hadn't caught up to. So remember they had the whole visual editor thing?
Yeah.
That just didn't really work. Whereas now, like, look at how many visual website builders
now it's all about no code, visual only.
Yeah.
It's big. That's what everyone wants to do, is not care about code at all.
That's a whiles away, but it's coming. It's coming.
Times are changing.
Times are changing.
I just need to slightly rescale you, and then I'll put you back in your. I'll let you do your talk.
My talk.
Yeah.
I'm super excited to give this talk. So I've given it before. I gave it before quite a while ago, actually. But I enjoy it because telling the story is quite personal to me, just because it's very reflective of what I did when I first started working where I work now. I don't want to give the secret away.
Okay.
I'll talk about it in my talk.
In that case, I'll let you just get straight onto it then. Do you want to full screen your talk, and then I will hand you over?
I'm not even sharing my screen.
Okay.
That would help quite a bit. How's that? Can you see it?
Yes.
Hopefully.
That's why your camera changed
Brilliant.
around. I see. Now I'll rescale you back again.
Rescale me back.
Cool. Fantastic. All right.
All right.
All yours.
Thank you. Hey, wonderful people on the internet. Thank you so much for hanging around and sticking around through the talks. Thank you so much, Pandevis, for having me as well. I'm super excited. Like, I've not been able to talk about Electron for a while, so it's always good to get back on it. And I'm super excited to be here. Thank you, Ultima Technology, as well. Those things that you're building look really, really cool, and hopefully I can get to play around with them sometime. But what I'm here to talk about today is landing on the desktop with Electron. Now, I know some people who are watching this could either be like, this is interesting, or this might send shivers down your spine. And I'm just going to go back to kind of what Pandelis was talking about, right? So a lot of times we really need to think about where is the code going to run. And usually in the world of web, it's just, oh, where do I deploy it so it stays alive? But oftentimes, from a different perspective, where code runs is very important. And Electron helps solve a problem with that. But let me take you back to about 10 months ago when I started my new job at this company I work at now, which is called Twilio. And one of the first things that I was asked to do was to help work on a game called Twilio Quest. Oh, a video game. That's all right. This is new. And I was asked to help out working on this game. And when I saw these logos, I freaked out. If you look, I'm going to point at them with my mouse. You see the Windows logo, the Apple logo, the Linux logo, and then Steam. We were going to create a game that was going to run on Windows, Mac, Linux, and Steam. And you could download it off Steam. And I was freaked out because I am a web developer. I don't do none of these things. And this was really, really scary to me. What do I do? Now, let's talk about what desktop applications actually are. So desktop applications, just like an application. What is an application? That's a whole bigger question. But an application that runs on a desktop, and then we have three main operating systems. We have Windows, iOS, and Linux. Now, each of these architectures are quite different. Sometimes they're very similar, and sometimes they are very different. And there can often be a very high barrier to entry. And what I was really worried about was I would have to learn all of these different new technologies really, really quickly. I didn't understand them. But what did I understand? I understand web technology. Now, web technology, on the other hand, compared to like those OSs that I showed before, they're usually very accessible for learners. There's a low barrier to entry. And also, one of the big things about the web, and the reason why the web is actually so powerful and popular, is it's easy to reach different architecture. When you actually think about it, the web, I know there's so many different browsers and so many different things that you have to watch out for, but the web is one of the most standardized pieces of like deployment anywhere. And it evolves much, much quicker than operating systems do. So what is Electron? Electron lets you use web technologies to build desktop applications. It lets you use all of these to build and deploy on all of these. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what Electron is. Now, I'm not sure what the skill level is for people who are watching this video. And because there are so many people from different ranges of skills, I'm going to do a little introduction into Electron. And I won't necessarily go too much in depth. Just if you want to find out more, I'll point you to resources. But let's get going. So I like to tell stories. And let's go back in time to my favorite year of all time. Hint, hint. 1994. And 1994 was a very, very different time. Original Lion King, not that live action remake that came out, was topping the box office. Sony just released a new console called PlayStation. People weren't sure how well it was going to do. And a small company started in a garage called Amazon.com, literally only in a garage. I mean, the world has changed since then. But for us developers, especially web developers, a very important thing happened in 1994. The amazing Netscape was released. And why is Netscape important? Because Netscape created a language that we all know and maybe not all love, but sometimes hate, JavaScript. And JavaScript is the world, and it was at the time the world's most popular browser and had 90% of the market share in the 90s. Now, what is the most popular browser today? It's Chromium. Now, I know some people are going to be like, no, it's Chrome. No, Chromium is the open source browser that powers Chrome and actually powers many other browsers as well. So this is the most popular browser around the world almost. Now, another JavaScript innovation is Node.js. Now, in 2009, Node.js was released, and it allowed us to run JavaScript outside of the browser. We could run JavaScript on people's computers. And JavaScript developers like myself were no longer handcuffed to the browser. We could run JavaScript from the command line in PowerShell or Terminal. And we also had access to the NPM, which allowed us to really grab libraries and really add additional functionality to the code we were writing. And this was another innovation. And when developing the text editor Atom, GitHub, they developed a way to combine Node.js and Chromium into a single runtime. And thus, the beautiful baby Electron was born. Look at it, it's just so cute. So, how does Electron actually work? So remember what I said. I'm going to head back and see if I can find those slides. So Electron uses HTML, CSS, and JavaScript built on top of Node to access all of the architectures on the OS or the OS sort of architectures, but then renders everything you see using Chromium, using HTML and CSS and JavaScript. So I am going to quickly go back to how does it work? All right, so Electron has a couple of things going on. First, it has a main process. Now, this main process is like the heart of whatever's going on. And the main process can trigger off many other different renderer processes. Now, all of these are just JavaScript files. And what happens is when you load a new window or you click on your Electron application, it starts and it then triggers off all these renderer processes. And I'm going to, speeding through my slides really quickly, I'm going to start with a very basic demo. So I'm going to do the classic thing we all do when we start, hello world. And I want to show that one. Cool. Okay, hopefully you can all see my screen. I'm going to get into the right one. And I'm going to open the main. So this is main. Hopefully my screen is clear for everyone to see. And in main, what happens is when we start, we obviously bring in Electron. We create a window. And this window that we've created here is this over here. Now I've resized it, so it's no longer 800 by 600. But it's also got some web preferences and stuff, but we're not going to focus on that. The main thing I want to focus on is this bit here. Main window, which is the window we created, we're going to load a file. We're going to load this index.html. Let's head over to index.html. And as you can see here, this is plain old HTML. HTML that we all know and love. HTML that is the backbone of nearly all of the internet. We just have it here and we can edit it and build out our web pages just like we usually do on the internet. However, rather than living on a server, this will run on different OSs and architecture. And so many popular applications are actually using it. If you have Slack on the desktop, that's Electron. If you use VS Code, like I am using right now, that is Electron. And there's so many other things that Electron does as well. So you can bring in your HTML, your CSS, and all of that wonderful stuff over here. Now, I'm also going to look at this renderer.js file. So imagine you wanted to run some JavaScript. You can run JavaScript. Now, the great thing about running JavaScript in renderer.js is you can still access some of the extra Electron APIs that you have. And these Electron APIs are really useful. I'm going to show off some of them actually now. So show off some of the extra functionality. I did not mean to close that window. Let me reopen that again. Where is it? Code. There we go. All right. So we are now, I'm opening a new Electron app. Now, this is the Electron API demo. So it shows you the different APIs that you have available. I'm going to minimize this and make this bigger. So we have code here that can, let's see if I can, here that shows you how to create new windows. So I can create a new window. I've created a window over on my screen called Hello World, and we can close it. Let's close this. So you can create multiple windows. You can manage window states, manage blur and focus. And if you can see underneath, you can see that all the different Windows, Mac OS, and Linux, it shows which ones are supported. Now you also need to worry about handling window crashes and hangs, some stuff that you wouldn't necessarily have to worry about in a browser, but these are things that you can do. Also, you may notice that whenever you are using, like right now I'm using Windows, and usually at the top of Windows you have here edit, view, window, and usually filed as well. So if you look over here, you can see the code. There you can create your own windows, your own menu buttons to go on the top. And this is really good because it allows you to code in behavior that fits that OS's way of exhibiting that behavior. But when you switch to like a Mac, it switches that same design to a Mac's design. So the Mac now will have, usually on Macs, it's right at the top with the top bar. You'll still have those menu bars as well. You can also handle shortcuts, which is pretty cool. One of my favorite ones is things like notifications. Now, I usually turn my presentations on Do Not Disturb. So I'm not sure if this is going to show, because I've got it on Do Not Disturb. Let me take it off Do Not Disturb. There we go. Give me one moment. Let's clear all notifications and let us try that again. So Electron API demos, view demo should create a notification. And I've put it on alarms only. That's why. Let's try now. Cool. All right. You couldn't see it because it was on my second screen. Can I drag it? That sucks. Okay. You have to trust me that on my second screen, my notification literally appeared that said short message part and basic notification on top. Now I know that on like, for example, Macs, it comes up on the top, Windows, it comes up on the bottom, and you can do that as well. Now Linux doesn't necessarily have notifications all the times. It's only on like some of the Linux machines. So this isn't available everywhere. But you also have system dialogues. You can you have minimization to put your app in the tray on top for Apple. You can put it in like hidden in the taskbar on Windows and so on and so forth. And now, if you remember, we spoke about the main and the renderer processes. I'm going to head back to my slides. So if we go back to our main and renderer processes. Now, the difference between main and renderer. Now, renderer is usually where you put all your client-side JavaScript, right? So the JavaScript that helps power what the website looks like. Now, specifically in this case, where we've been talking about serverless and stuff like that, and talking about thinking about where you want your code to run, a lot of times people don't necessarily want to have a server running that serves stuff. So with an Electron app, you could have just APIs feeding into the renderer process over here. I don't know what's loading. But more importantly, if you look at this main process, now this main process has access to all of the Node.js APIs. So any JavaScript API that is available in Node.js is available to your Electron app. Now, one thing that has always been a bane of web existence, and I mean, it's actually quite an important feature, is that from a web application, it's quite difficult to get access to the user's actual computer for very good reasons. But on the other hand, with Electron, because you have access to all of those Node APIs, you can now access the computer. You can go and find out what CPU they're running and stuff like that if you need to. So let's go back through some of the API demos. So just like I said before, you can go get system information, you can get screen information, you can take screenshots, so many different things. And if you want to play around with Electron, I would highly suggest going to electronjs.org. It has so many resources. So we've done the more features demo. It's got so many resources. Now, what happens is after you've built out your application, you've got this like nice little web app going. What you would often do is you would set up you would package your application, and you would package it differently for all of the different OSs. So you would have a package, there's different tools that help you package your application in a way that it can be installed easily on a Windows machine, on a Mac, and on a Linux. Now, usually this is one of the more complicated parts because there are slight intricacies of what is available on each of those machines. But the good thing is Electron gives you this nice framework to actually design and build your desktop application with web technologies, and then after that be able to deploy it on so many different architectures. So my journey to the desktop started with this desktop game that I spoke about earlier, called Twilio Quest. I'm actually going to open Twilio Quest up just so you can see what it looks like. So this is Twilio Quest over here. It is built in Electron. So this is just a fancy web browser. But what you've got, I don't have 0xp. I just reset it before this. But you can go over here and you've got all of these different missions. So for example, if I hit basic training and start, there's a bit of conversation. There's a whole storyline, but I have to hack these interfaces. And if I remember, I forgot what it was called. Level up. That was the password. And I hack these interfaces, I can get through. Now, what's really useful is because this is a game that is designed to teach people how to write code. If I head all the way back and show you some of the missions again. Yep, there we go. Yep. If I head back, you can see you've got JavaScript test lab. So this teaches you how to use JavaScript. Now, and capture the flag teaches you how to use your command line. Python teaches you about Python. This teaches you GitHub, and then some that teach you about the Twilio products. Now, what's really interesting, especially the missions that teach you about Twilio products, is you can either do it in your own editor, but because we have the Node runtime, we actually have a built-in code editor and terminal into the game that allows you to write code and run code within the game. And this is something that is only possible because of Electron. And we're able to work on this and deploy it across so many different architecture. We used a game framework called Phaser. Now, the reason I think this is important is because you may be using so many different web frameworks, for example, Gatsby, React, Nuxt, like the list of JavaScript frameworks goes on forever. But nearly all of those frameworks can be modified to run on Electron. So you can take the same design cycle, the same code you were using to run your web applications and port them into desktop applications quite quickly. So sometimes people ask a little things about how we keep our games up to date, how we update our games. Well, what we actually do, and this is just a Twilio Quest specific thing, is we have a game server. We do have a game server that holds all the information about the game. And what we do is we have a launcher app. So we have a launcher app and a game window. So now this game window is where Electron runs, and it's triggered by the launcher app. The launcher app is just a little bit of code that goes and makes sure that we have the latest version of the game. If not, it re-downloads the latest version before before launching a game window. I could actually show you the launcher app, Twilio Quest. Try again. It's decided not to work today. I mean, that's always going to happen whenever you have a live demo. Let's move on to the next slide. Well, thank you for listening. And this is what I was trying to do here is just give you an introduction into Electron. What is possible? Electron allows you to use the same technologies that you already know and love, the web technologies you already know and love, but you now don't need to think of the desktop as a limiting wilderness in which you can never go. You can now use the technology that you already use on the web to build applications on the desktop. Now, I know that Electron doesn't get a lot of love, specifically when it's running with Chromium, because it can be quite greedy. But as Electron continues to develop, the performance of it is getting so much better. I mean, if you look at the way VS Code, Slack, and quite a lot of other companies, Messenger, Facebook Messenger, they all use Electron, and they're slowly finding out ways to really get the most out of performance in it. So definitely check it out if you're ever thinking about desktop applications. It might be able to help you in some way, shape, or form. Thank you for listening as well. My name is Nathaniel Okenwa. You can find me online on Twitter, on Instagram, and all the other things at Chatterboxcoder. I talk a lot and I write code. And I work for a company called Twilio. If you've never heard about Twilio, Twilio is a telecommunications company for developers. So what we do is we have a couple of tools, products, and APIs that help that give developers the ability to send texts, make phone calls, receive phone calls, and do amazing cool stuff with it. And you can build some awesome stuff with Twilio. So if you ever want to find out what projects there are that you can build with Twilio, head over to twilio.com and you can find so much. But thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Pandelis, and thank you, everyone. That was fast. All right. Is that good? No worries.
Wicked. Yeah. Good stuff, man. Yeah. Oh, Phaser. I've used Phaser. It's some cool stuff. You can do so much. It's just so nice to, as you say, full control over the runtime. Do what you want. Use what you want, and in any way you want. And it's really nice. You said some of those stuff with like all this access Electron gives you, CPU, window management, everything. I remember one Electron hack I did. I did it as a prank for at a hackathon, obviously. But yeah, because Electron gives you so much power, you have access to the window, right? You can spawn windows anywhere you want.
Dangerous.
And as many as you want. I remember there used to be these like Chrome Lab experiments where you could play like as the browser windows, like Pong, and then it would spawn another browser window and like bloop, 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 bloop. It was good. It was good fun. But yeah, I did, because it's Chrome and it's Chromium at the end of the day. I had like a hacked version of Chrome where like and I put it on my friend's machine when he walked away, and he clicked it, and it was just his face spawning in different windows of Chrome.
Oh, it's just you're not a good friend.
It's just the Chrome logo, right, when it's by default. So yeah, and it's just his face constantly, bloop, 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 and until it runs out of RAM. So it'd be like hundreds of his face floating on the in Chrome windows.
So, I mean, the big takeaway from this is don't trust Pandas with your computer.
That's it. I barely trust me with my own computer. Wicked. But yeah, thanks so much for coming on our first little meetup. Yeah, I've really been missing talks, and it's I've tried to watch talks on YouTube and stuff, and then it's like I'm not invested enough, so I wanted to really do some fresh live stuff, get some human interaction, talk to people in general.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm just happy to hang out as well.
Brilliant. But yeah, you do some of your own little content as well, don't you? You run a little podcast. I was reading your tweets the other day, and it popped up, and I was like, oh damn, this is really cool.
Yeah, so I have the Baby Developer Show. I'm quite early on in my career, but it's not just for people who are early in their career. What I do is I sit down with a guest each week, nearly each week, and we talk about what it's like to get into tech. And oftentimes I'll try to find guests who have like the most unorthodox roads into tech, so not just traditional routes. And it's so nice to see like the different backgrounds, and to see what lessons they learn and what lessons I can take from it. And hopefully these are things that someone listening who's getting started in tech doesn't have to make the same mistakes we made. So I am live on Twitch every Tuesday, usually be either at 3:30, or if the person's American, I allow them, and I do at 5, so they're awake. So it's either 3:30 p.m. or 5 p.m. on twitch.tv/chatterboxcoder, because I talk a lot and I write code, as I said before. Or if you don't necessarily want to watch it live, you can always listen to the audio on Spotify or Google Podcasts, and just search Baby Developer Show and you can find it.
Lovely. Yeah, that's good. It's good to have some content for those new to the tech sector, or new to tech careers and coders and whatnot. Brilliant. Yeah, I'll be watching that a lot more. I didn't know about it. I was like, oh damn. I always like when people I know make content. It's nice to be able to watch each other's stuff.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, I think that's basically us. Let me see if there's any questions in our Slack at all. Doesn't look like it. There's been some people watching in our Slack, so that's cool. But yeah, hopefully we can. So since this is the first one, hopefully eventually I want to get some more people on it as well. That would be cool. Hopefully we can make this a bit of a regular thing. Why not, eh?
Yeah, I would love to be back again. Actually,
yeah, that would be cool to have do a classic episode in the future when you change up your posters, have some rotating posters around.
Yeah. Oh, so I'm looking to get some anime posters because like I love anime, but I don't have any anime posters, and that's like,
what's up with that? Yeah.
What a missed opportunity. Yeah, I do have like an MMA poster, which I'm really, really proud of. But I'll show you actually. Let's see if I can make this work. So, Anderson Silva is one of the greatest fighters of all time. I love it. Yeah. Maybe he might move behind me soon.
Lovely. Cool. My only poster is like I've got a framed picture of Birmingham in the background, which is where I did my university. Lovely.
Yeah, that's where we met actually.
Was it Birmingham?
What was it?
It was. Yeah, and that was my hackathon. Yeah. Oh yes, that's it. Yeah.
It was one of my first hackathons.
I remember Kevin brought a massive little group of Goldsmith people.
Yeah, that was us.
That was so good. Oh, we were playing games like throughout the night as well. Oh, it was good fun, that one.
Yeah, it was.
Cool.
All right then.
Well, yeah, thanks so much. I'll close us out, and hopefully we can do another one of these in a month. If anyone's interested in being a speaker, please reach out to me on Twitter or hit us up on the Slack community. But yeah, thanks so much for watching. VOD will be up straight after this, I guess. So if you've missed anything, go back and watch. And yeah, ciao.